It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 244. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace is back!
It's Dr. Grace.
Dr. Grace. Kodra.
Hi, Dr. Grace.
Hi.
Cam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey there.
So, yeah, this is the first show with Grace, and that's pretty freaking awesome. So,
Yay.
we kind of covered, like, what happened, but, like, yeah, you're all doctory now.
Yes, I am. I heard you guys talking about me last time, and it was fun.
I gotta say, I'm super happy to have you back.
It's so true.
We have missed you.
I'm super happy to be back because I have missed you, and also I have missed video games.
So, like, this week, as you're getting acclimatized to video games again, how's that been?
It's been great. I mean, I haven't been playing a lot of games, but I've been playing a significant amount of Anthem, and I've been enjoying that.
Which is awesome.
I have a shiny new computer, and that's also awesome. So, games. Life without video games is really weird, and I don't want to do that again.
But I think in the long run, it's going to be worth it, you know?
I mean, I guess so. My business card is extra fancy now, so that's cool.
So, what? Okay, I'm gonna go into some complaints I have about Anthem, but first, I'm curious. What are your impressions of Anthem after playing it, like, this week?
I'm super happy that you explained this game to me in Diablo terms instead of Destiny terms, because it definitely makes sense that way and clicked in my brain much faster with that context. Even though obviously it's a shooter, but just the loot concept, the style of setting difficulty, and that piece of it made sense instantly in Diablo context. But I've been enjoying it. It's like Destiny, except I care about the story. Sorry, Belle.
No, I fully understand. Like, you had to go nuts to actually care about the story in Destiny. Or in my case, just watch a ton of lore videos.
Yeah, but instead it's like, oh, there's characters in this game, and they have discussions, and I can respond to them, but also I'm super confused because someone keeps saying that this is a BioWare game, but I can't seem to romance any of these people, and I don't know what's up with that.
You do a lot of flirting, though.
You do a lot of flirting in this game.
I mean, that's good, but, like, how is this BioWare if I can't actually romance them? That just doesn't seem right to me at all.
There's zero smooching. Yeah, and it's been interesting to see, like, BioWare 2.0 characters, because they're, like, still very interesting, detailed characters. They're just not quite as fleshed out.
I really like... I feel like BioWare is experimenting... with Anthem, BioWare is experimenting with characterization in a bunch of different ways, and it's really cool to see. Like, I mean, my bias is pretty obvious, but I think it's really cool seeing devs, like, try new interesting things outside of their normal wheelhouses and stretch and expand and do new stuff.
And I feel like overall it's been a success, for me at least. And I do have complaints about it, but, like, I've put in 188 hours so far, so that's a thing.
I haven't gotten far enough in to really, like, reach the point of the complaints I know some other folks in the community have, but, like, I'm level 10 or 11 after a week of playing. It feels good. I'm enjoying it. Killing stuff is fun. Flying around is fun now that I figured out how to control that. Luckily, I listened to you guys first.
It's a weird muscle memory that you build over time, because, like, I still think the controls are a little wonky, but, like, I'm used to them, and I can, like, bank and do barrel rolls and all kinds of crazy stuff now, but yeah, it was a bit of a struggle to get used to it. So I guess I will dig into my complaints. But first I want to preface them with like how amazing BioWare has been at responding to issues. The frequency and the patching has been on point. Like, and I talked about this a little bit, like in I don't even know. I know I talked about it a little bit on Reddit, and talking on Reddit is kind of like screaming into the wind. But you know, basically, like as a developer, you kind of look at problems, and there's like the low-hanging fruit that really is pretty easy to fix, and then there's the things that you just need to pour time at, but are largely disconnected systems, and then there are the like really challenging interconnected systems to where you kind of have to do very delicate surgery to make the change. And I feel like BioWare has been amazing at addressing all three of those, just to varying degrees of success, because like if there's been a situation where a bug is happening and it is just simply a case of, oh, well, the numbers were wrong, or, oh, we accidentally turned off Masterwork crafting components from dropping. Those have been, like, super quickly patched. Usually within hours of them confirming that, yes, what the community is saying is absolutely correct. The biggest challenge that they've had is on loot. And to some extent, I get that, because loot is a very delicate thing. You can totally destroy a game by making it too generous. However, you can also destroy a game by making it too stingy. And I feel like Anthem is kind of in this weird place where like it's not entirely certain what kind of game it wants to be. Like it very obviously wants to be a Diablo-y type game. However, it's lacking a lot of the levers that Diablo has to fix loot. So the two games share a lot in common in that they have like these random inscriptions that are on items, and they can make an item completely useless, and they can make an item just absolute god tier. And there's a huge gulf of possibilities between the two. And because of that, it tends to lend itself more to a Diablo-style system where loot needs to rain from the sky, and then you sift through the junk on the ground and pick out the item that actually fits what you're trying to go for as a character. And to this point, it hasn't done that. Like, life is good until you reach the boundary between Hard and Grandmaster 1. And that's when things start to change a little bit. As a Diablo 3 player, like there are when you're pushing like a new season, there are periods of time where it becomes a challenge to move up to the next tier. Like there are times that your gear just isn't quite sustainable to where you can fight okay and you can kill things, you just can't do it efficiently. And when you first shift over to Grandmaster 1 from hard difficulty, there's very much this adjustment period as you're getting items to where it's very difficult to kill anything. And then as you become more and more masterworked, that all eases into a point where it feels like, oh, you can just now wreck Masterwork 1.
Are you talking about like modern Diablo or launch Diablo?
Modern Diablo.
Okay. Because I was going to say, like, I definitely follow what you're describing, and there's definitely there's that bump between hard and Grandmaster that's kind of awkward to make that jump. But I feel like I remember similar issues with Diablo's loot around launch as well.
Right, and
Diablo's loot around launch was completely bad, and they had to completely change it when they made a new expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Right.
seems like the sort of lesson that maybe other game developers ought to have paid more attention to.
Possibly, but it's one of those things it's such a hard thing to just like port a lesson straight from one game to another one.
Yeah, but they ported the mistakes pretty well.
Yeah, because the mistakes are really easy. Like, it's really
true.
easy to make those mistakes. Because, like, Anthem is doing a thing that Diablo doesn't, which is level scaling, where you can play with people way below your level and it works.
Yes.
And that alone is going to change everything about loot calculations and progression calculations, like top to bottom. Like that alone changes every possible mistake you could be making, even if you're trying to learn from other games.
So where we're at right now is this week they loosened up the purse strings a little bit, and now that boundary between hard and Grandmaster is a little bit easier because Masterworks seem to be flowing significantly more frequently.
In hard?
Well, no. Like, hard has always been easy to get, like, the handful of Masterworks that actually drop in hard. Basically, you're limited to one of every weapon type that can drop in hard. Then everything else drops in Grandmaster 1. And a combination of some gear scaling that went in the last patch and Masterworks being more common in Grandmaster 1, it's easier to get geared out to where Grandmaster feels okay. But the big challenge right now is that legendaries are still extremely uncommon unless you're in Grandmaster 2 or Grandmaster 3. And they're not really common in Grandmaster 2 or Grandmaster 3. So there's this awkward gulf of I can't move up to the next tier and be an effective member of a team.
Is the difference between legendaries and Masterworks that big?
Yes. I mean, it's a sizable difference between the two. It's enough that they basically put, I think, I'd have to... Masterworks are now 61 item level, and legendaries are now 75 item level, which probably doesn't mean much, but it's a sizable jump in total efficiency of the item.
That's the difference between Molten Core and Encourage Epics.
Right.
So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a big jump. Like it's good enough that I am going to use crappy drops that may not fit what I actually want to do.
Just because they're legendary?
Just because they're legendary, yeah. So, like, I'm using Sticky Grenade right now because I have a legendary Sticky Grenade. And it does so much more damage than my Masterworks did.
Yeah, and I definitely...
There's also the part where they added scaling to things that you can't directly equip, like your melee attack, on the item level of your gear, and your ultimate as well.
Which has led to some entirely different discussions, but, like, and those... So basically, they're not counting empty slots against you in your gearing. There are other negative ramifications of not having gear, as in, affecting your overall survivability. But for damage calculation, you're not penalized for having empty slots, which has led to some crazy stuff where people just equip only their legendaries and go in with empty slots. Right now, I have created a brand new profile and did not equip a support item because there does not exist a Masterwork or higher version of a support item in the game yet. So, like, it will always be at level 38. That's the best you can get. And I am already seeing a noticeable jump in my damage numbers just by having that one item not equipped.
And that's the part where Tam alludes to. It's an interaction between the scaling system that keeps things reasonable and with having unintended consequences.
Yeah, but it seems like this is a relatively fixable thing. Like, I understand that it's not ideal and that people are cranky about it right now, but like...
Yes, but this seems like a completely fixable short-term type bug.
Yes.
It is.
And I think that's the thing that's been really, appealing for me looking at Anthem, is that I don't see anything that isn't a fixable problem.
They seem to be fixing the problems that come up pretty quickly, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Right, which is in part why I wanted to preface my original statement that they have done a phenomenal job of fixing this, and they even came out and said this week that they're still not happy with where loot's at, but they could make this tweak server side without affecting anything else. So, yeah, hopefully by the time everyone else gets to the point that I'm at, they'll have solved this problem and it's not a big deal, but like as it stands right now, it feels awkward to have a very, very limited access to the items that could actually help me move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that it's worth noting that you're at the like absolute bleeding content edge.
Yes, yeah. I'm basically I am fighting for the push to the next tier, which is like the end of content.
Yeah, like you're at that point where Destiny had, where it's like even getting one more light level like is just you grind and grind and grind and pray for a drop. I mean, not that that's what's going on in Anthem, but like similar thing where it's like you're hitting the point where you've got like severe diminishing returns. I do think that despite my previous comments about it's sometimes hard to learn lessons about games that are similar to but not quite the same, I do think that if you are going to make tiers of difficulty and scale things in that kind of like step function way, that your itemization should reflect that. Like, because then, and your itemization should reflect that. And I think that a safe bet, and I would have to go do a bunch of research to figure out what the precise number is, but you can expect that a given player is going to want to upgrade to the next tier of content before absolutely maxing out the existing tier for, bad luck drop reasons or just fatigue reasons. And that's definitely a thing that I've seen MMOs get right and wrong, where like, oh, if you want to go to the next raid tier, you need every drop. Every slot needs to be upgraded from the previous dungeon, because if you don't, you are just not good enough. And then it's going to be rough. Like it was the Nax problem in WoW, where
FF14 had that problem during Alexander days.
Yeah, yeah, same idea. Where it's just like if you can't get that one drop for whatever reason, you're just not moving forward, and like that's a bad feeling. And I remember looking at somebody did a cross section of WoW raids at one point, like what gear people were using, and was commenting about the flattening. But like in, I want to say Burning Crusade era, somebody broke down the numbers and it was like people going into a new content tier had like 70%, 60 to 70% of the previous tier, 20% of the tier before that, and 10% the tier before that. And like that seems like a reasonable curve, because then those few slots that you just can't manage to get a drop for aren't crippling you. But it does always seem weird to me that you wouldn't have, unless you're talking about something like Diablo, where the differences are like the loot works a little differently there, but having that like clear, I'm gonna up to a higher difficulty or a new tier of whatever, like the itemization should exist for that. I really like that there's hard tier Masterworks, and then you use those hard tier Masterworks to get yourself and the epics in hard to get yourself into Grandmaster 1. And like, sure, it takes a bit of time to get all of the blues that you probably have up to purple tier. But then once you're at purple tier with a couple of Masterworks, you can move into Grandmaster 1 and it feels okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing, obviously I'm not far enough along in Anthem to see this, but it seems like it doesn't have some of the unnecessary granularity of Diablo. I mean, I love Diablo, but you start a new season and you gear up, and generally, sure, there exists torment levels 1 through 13, but effectively you're skipping over big chunks of them. You're not actually playing each one of them for a while, getting some gear, and then moving to the next one. You get 1 or 2 pieces of gear and you skip from 1 to 7 to 10 to 13 without actually experiencing the intervals in the middle.
And the intervals in the middle are for, oh, I got an item, but it's not a great item, so like maybe I'm just going to go up to Torment 5 instead of 7. It like it feels like it lets you progress without like hard requiring you to get particularly good items.
There's also the bit about Greater Rift levels not exactly corresponding to Torment levels, which is an additional level of granularity.
Yeah, that's a whole extra thing. But that is definitely a level of granularity that's probably not super necessary at the low end, at least. At the high end, sure.
Well, and honestly, like, the challenge that I think they're running into right now is that maybe they need to steal more ideas from Diablo 3, because Diablo 3 gives you a certain amount of loot fixing in that you can re-roll legendaries, you can overwrite specific inscriptions so that you can, like, get rid of the one bad item on an item.
I was thinking there was no way for me to gamble with blood shards.
You can also, like, make bad choices with Kadala and go for blood shards.
Not a bad choice to use a specific legendary item.
Right. But the thing is, Anthem doesn't have any of that. So you can get absolutely useless items. And there's some problems with the ranges on items. So I could get a weapon that has plus 200% damage in one slot and plus 200% damage in another slot. I could get an item that grants me the total of, like, plus 300 armor by it having two inscriptions in the same thing. Or I could get the same inscription that's like plus 10% pickup radius, which is not a comparable inscription.
Yeah, those don't sound equivalent.
No. So you end up, and that's the challenge that, you know, you're in, is like a WoW type system is curated roles on items. So, like, every time you pick up this item, it's going to be the same item, so that by the time you fought RNG and gotten that drop, you can predict what that drop will mean to you.
Somewhat.
I can pick up a legendary, and it can roll for a class that I'm not currently on right now. I absolutely got a legendary interceptor inscription the other day on my ranger. It felt real bad.
Boo. Is there economy? Can you trade stuff?
Nope.
Oh, that's dumb.
So basically, like, they need to tweak a lot of levers, and I am confident they will, but there's some weirdness right now on being on the leading edge of this game.
I can believe it. Controversial opinion, though. I don't have a problem with being able to get drops for other frames.
I like it in most cases. However,
if you are relying on a legendary drop to move forward at all,
yeah,
seeing
it feels
one that
real
you
bad.
can't use doesn't feel good.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I totally understand that one. But I think it would be really... I think that there's a really cool, like, with some tweaking and refinement, I think it would be really cool if I could, like, gear up my Colossus, who's pretty far behind, using my Storm. So that I don't have to, like, do the same grind. Like, it's one of the things that feels really, really good in FF14, where, like, maybe a drop happens for the class I'm not on, but if I get it, I can boost that class that I'm not on because I have access to it. Like, I feel very different if I could only pick one frame and then not switch between them. But
well, and part of it too should maybe be based on what the current gear level of the frame that you're on is. So, like, once you've gotten to the point where legendaries have diminishing returns, then sure, start dropping legendaries for the other frames.
Yeah. There's some, like, modulation that could go on there where it's like, oh, this rolled a duplicate. Like, you got another one of these and this is not better. Flip it to another class and re-roll it. Stuff like that.
I mean, my other basic stance is that if they're going to keep legendaries as rare as they seemingly are, they maybe need to curate the rolls. So that when you get one, it's just not junk.
Well, or give a method to re-roll them.
Right. That's definitely a thing.
Well,
like, something like ribbon mods in Warframe.
Yeah.
Where getting a ribbon is,
pretty rare.
They are not common. But once you have one, you can just keep re-rolling it over and over and over until you get a set of stats you like on it.
So that's
and
one
it's
of
more
the
and more
things
expensive each time, but
that exists with Masterworks that's really cool is they built Masterworks into their crafting system so that you using that Masterwork unlocks the pattern to make more of that Masterwork. So once you've done its thing to unlock it, you could basically just, so long
Just
as you've
keep
got
crafting
materials,
more, yeah.
right, keep rolling the dice and trying to get a good roll.
But you can't do that for legendaries.
No, there is no crafting system for legendaries right now. So again, that's another lever that they could tweak. So yeah, I mean, like, they're going to sort this out at some point, but since this is the top of their difficulty spectrum, I think they're probably being overly cautious just to make sure they don't wreck the game long term. But that's really it. Like, yes, we got some remedy on the loot, but it wasn't quite enough.
Maybe next week.
Maybe next week. They are working on a big patch that supposedly fixes the scaling thing.
Which scaling thing?
The bit where you can
unequip all your gear but a couple items and hit harder.
Go in naked and just do melee all the time. So Grace, I have a question for you, because I'm curious if I just had really bad luck. What difficulty are you playing on? And have you had any problems getting full groups from the party, the matchmaking?
So I am playing on normal difficulty, and I have been playing in private mode.
Okay.
So I have not been matchmaking unless I've had to for like free play.
Yeah. Okay.
And I haven't done any of the dungeon called yet, although I have unlocked them now, so I'd like to do them. But
because the problem I've started having, and admittedly I haven't been on in a few days, and it might have just been bad luck that night, was I was playing in normal, and I ran 2 missions, and both times I got matched with one other player, and so it was 2 of us. And one of those was a story mission that ended with like a whole bunch of Ursics, and God, it was a slog with only 2 people.
Maybe I will have to start grouping more, because that sounds unfun by yourself.
Honestly, this is like the first game where I have actively like kept matchmaking on and been willing to group, because there's really not any way that I've yet discovered for other players to grief you.
Yeah, it seems like it should be okay, and mostly I've left it off because I haven't played any games in several months, and I'm very rusty and not that great at shooter to begin with, so I wanted to like invest a little time getting used to the game before I subjected strangers to my nonsense. But it seems like maybe once things start getting tougher, I will be better off grouping rather than bumping the difficulty down.
Yeah, but I worry that there's not enough people playing at the lower levels anymore to get full groups at anything below, I don't know, Grandmaster. Which, if that's the case, would be really annoying that, I fell behind and now I can't get a full group.
I noticed, so I think one of the things that might be happening is I was messing around on hard level missions and had no problem getting full groups, but I think that I don't think that the game, and I think we talked about this at one point earlier, but like I don't think the game messages when a good time to go from normal to hard is. And one of the things that I saw because I saw a subreddit thread that was like, hey, how do I know what difficulty I should be on? And a bunch of people were saying the best time to upgrade your difficulty to hard if you're playing in matchmaking mode is when you get your second javelin.
Huh.
Which is like level 8.
So
and
why?
Like,
what?
Okay, that I have yet to feel like I should increase the difficulty level, but also they've like fixed guns like hitting like pea shooters since the game started, so maybe it's less of an issue. I don't know.
What's the rationale on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also curious about this one.
What the thread was saying?
Yeah.
That basically right around level 10 or so, if you're playing in a full group of 4 on normal, you're just steamrolling stuff. And that was definitely the experience I was having, where like missions were not even a little bit challenging with a full group of 4. And like it was like to the point where I couldn't, as a storm, I couldn't even get combos off because things died too fast. And as a result of all of that, because the XP you get for missions is partly determined by the difficulty of the mission, like the difficulty setting, but also determined by what you do in the mission. When you bump it up and have stuff with more enemies with more health and more enemies in general and so on, you get a significant amount more XP and you're not steamrolling it, and you get better drops.
Huh.
And it was, I didn't change it over until I was like level 16 or 18. And then when I changed it over, I jumped from like, oh, it takes me 2 to 3 missions to level up to like, I'm leveling up every mission until like the mid-20s.
There's also something to be said about doing group play, because the alliance bonus accounts for a huge chunk of your experience, and that's just missing if you're playing by yourself. And that alliance bonus can be as much as the rest of your experience. And honestly, like, I switched over about 15, and I'm wishing I had switched over significantly earlier than that.
Maybe I just need to bump the difficulty up, because I'm level 20 something, so it sounds like I should be on hard.
Yeah, it's. Yeah. I don't think it's messaged well, and at all.
Because mostly I haven't felt like the damage output I've been bringing has been. I don't know.
I noticed such a small difference bumping from normal to hard in terms of like, I expected to go into hard and be like, wow, I'm taking a whole bunch more damage and all of these other things. And that just wasn't the case for me.
So my take-home message from this is maybe try group play, and if that works out okay, maybe try group play on hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my going to hard was before they fixed the weapons, and like after the weapons, I feel like you're probably going to be steamrolling a lot of stuff. How much have you played since, God, I don't even remember what day they put in 1.3?
Those couple of missions where I could never get a full group.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't really comment on guns because I haven't fired one in like 2 weeks.
I mean, the other benefit of being on hard is that starting about 25, you can start getting Masterworks to drop, so that you can like have them and start playing with them and start unlocking the patterns.
I mean, the Masterwork machine pistol is bonus damage while hovering, so if you never fire it, it's worth having.
Yeah, I definitely don't have it, but
I am also willing to do nonsense anytime somebody wants to do nonsense and have all 4 whatever's reasonably geared at this point.
Yeah, the scaling is such that I've run into stuff. I mean, we ran around with Neff earlier, and despite like your gear being ridiculous and Waren's gear being ridiculous and my gear being pretty good, it wasn't like we were just drag carrying Neff through the whole thing.
I mean, yeah, because that's my concern and why I've been playing solo instead of grouping up with Belle or anyone else who is around, is because I've been dragged. Got dragged around in Destiny 1, and I appreciated it because then I, got to max level and got some gear, but it doesn't drag.
No, it doesn't, and that is something that they really do seem like they've managed to fix.
Anthem. Like it felt perfectly fine. It feels perfectly fine if you're doing content at your tier and people higher join you. Like that seems to work. That seems to feel pretty much fine.
Yeah.
Well, and it also allows like me to equip some of the Masterworks that I never use that are less than optimal for my build, but then I can start leveling them too.
Yeah, there's some advantages to doing it because it really just cares that you're doing missions, not what kind of missions you're doing. It doesn't feel good. It feels like you're being carried, Destiny or Diablo style, if you like get dragged into Grandmaster.
Yeah, I felt useless when we did a Grandmaster difficulty mission and I was level 10.
Yeah, but I don't think
just
that
kept dying.
Yeah, but I don't think there's not even like a lot of advantage to doing that. Like,
no,
we got more XP, kinda.
It wasn't that much more.
Yeah,
I was mostly curious.
Didn't get any. It didn't get very many badges, so.
Right.
Yeah, I was mostly curious if you would get the Masterwork rewards that are guaranteed at the end if you were sub-level, and the answer was no.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
So
there's no reason.
About that one.
The what?
So maybe they thought about that one.
Yeah, there's no reason to drag somebody lower level or lower geared into higher tier content. But if you're higher tier than a friend, you can join them for their content, and it isn't just going to be you steamroll everything and are invincible while they are normal-ish. It reminds me sort of Guild Wars 2's scaling.
Yeah.
Like I feel like even FF14 has more, like even when you get down leveled in FF14, there's still a significant enough power difference between you and the actual level 14 person than I notice in Anthem.
Interestingly, FF14 has weird oddities in its system as well.
It's true.
The absolute best way, the absolute most powerful you can be in a low-level dungeon is at the proper level, having smuggled in some upper-level gear from like a quest reward or something. Because there are a few cases where that can happen.
Yeah.
Starting with the newbie player set, which is exactly that.
Scaling systems are hard, yo.
I believe it.
Like, there is a reason that I have been beating the drum of level systems separating players from playing together is bad, because the alternative is you build a scaling system, and man, is that just an insanely complicated problem.
But in theory, it solves, those issues because people get to see their numbers go up, and also they get to play with their friends.
Yeah.
In theory.
Like, it just requires that you build two systems that are at odds with one another all the time. Not that that's, unique, but certainly a thing that you do a lot of when you're building a game. But it is an interesting problem.
So I don't have a great segue into this, so I'm just going to kind of push into it. Thalen, how the hell do you stomach Eureka? Like, apparently you've done this thing, and I would like to know.
All right. So yeah, because I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV, because I jumped back into it a few months back, and have gotten to the point that I can, I finished the initial main story. Still need to run the burn, hint, hint. But so I'm at the point that I can, do Eureka and raids and all that crap. And it took me a couple of weeks to try stepping into Eureka because I'd heard how awful it was. And I don't know, I kind of enjoy it. It's just running around killing monsters. And when a fate shows up, you go to the fate and you kill the fate monster. And then you go back to killing monsters. And if you want to get a group, you get a group. And if you don't want to get a group, you can do it solo. And I think that's the part I like best about it, is I can just go into Eureka solo. And if I feel like just going and finding some monsters my own level and killing them solo, yeah, it's slower than if I grouped up, but I'm making noticeable progress. And if I'm in the mood to get a group, I can get a group and run around and in Pagos murder void dragons for light.
So here's the problem that I have is, like, it feels like I'm running around outside of, like, Kern's Castle in EQ, killing random things and then drinking and then killing another mob and then drinking and then killing another mob and then drinking.
It kind of feels like killing yard trash, yeah. I mean, I don't have the and then drinking part, because maybe I could kill stuff like a level higher than me and just use a potion in between each one. I don't know. But like killing same level stuff, as long as I found a fairy first, like I can just chain them. But it took me, I guess, 3 weeks of Animos to get all of my Animos stuff done for Bard. And I've been in Pagos. This is my second week in Pagos, and I've got my initial Pagos weapon. So I mean, I feel like it's going at a relatively good clip. I think mostly the main reason I like it, and like it more than the relic weapon stuff in the previous two, is I don't have to queue for duty finder stuff. I don't like that. Like I can do it all solo if I really wanted to.
But what's the fun without terrible pug roulette?
large amount of my light farming on, in all cases I've had to do it so far, were soloing low level instances, where low level is, up to like level 50.
Yeah, there is also that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess there's more ability to do that with the previous ones. I feel like at the time, I don't know, maybe I could have done it that way even back then.
At level 60, it was reasonable to solo level 50 dungeons for the Heaven's Word Relic.
I certainly can now, especially now that I can take a team of NPCs in with me. Because I actually tested that once I had them high enough level to run Bray Flocks to see if it counted for the Atma book, and it did. So yeah. So in theory, if I want to finish my Atma bow I can.
No,
I'm not
no.
going to, but I could.
Books was the worst stage of any relic they've had so far.
Yeah.
Like, just completely. That was the worst stage.
That's my very first book has been sitting in my inventory with no dungeons checked off, like, since before Heavensward. And now it has one dungeon checked off, and I don't have any intention of checking off anymore.
How many of those have you done, Ash?
I have completed 3 original relic weapons and therefore 3 sets of books.
How many books was it per weapon?
9. 9 books per weapon.
Yeah, that's so, and 3 dungeons per book. So yeah,
3 dungeons per book, 3 fates per book.
Yep.
It's now 30 mobs. It used to be 100 mobs per book.
And this is better than Eureka.
I just said books were the worst stage ever.
Like, at least you got to do different kinds of things.
Yeah. It also doesn't hurt that the Eureka storyline involves Galuf and his crew, and so like this is of interest to me.
That's really the only reason I wanted to get into it, but
So I'm not 100% sure what's going on here because it's been a while since I've played Final Fantasy XIV. But a lot of the things you're saying remind me of my Cenarian Circle rep grind.
I mean, Eureka is very intentionally meant to be reminiscent of Final Fantasy XI. Like that is deliberate.
Eureka, I mean, you are leveling up because you have your own unique individual elemental level in Eureka.
Yeah, separate from your class level. So you're leveling from 1.
And then you also have a sort of weapon grind of sorts to do, in addition to this whole leveling up you need to do.
Mm-hmm. And the leveling up, the intention, this in practice is of course, different from intention. The intention was you go in with a group and find a camp of mobs and you start killing those mobs. And as you increase your chain, your XP for each kill grows and your chance of getting drops grows. And some of those mobs, once enough of them have been killed, cause a notorious monster to spawn, which is a fate. And the notorious monsters give, fate level rewards. Now, in practice, at least in Eureka and in Pagos now, there is a train that goes from fate to fate as the cooldown, finishes on them to cause them to spawn by just, absolutely destroying the mobs that spawn it until the fate pops, and then kill the fate, and then move on to the next one.
No, that sounds exactly like the structure of the Silithus grind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like
except for fewer costumes that you had to
I
make.
was gonna say kill enough cultists until you can make a costume.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Put on the costume to summon an elemental.
Yep. Summon enough of those.
Kill enough of those to summon a bigger one.
Yeah.
All it's missing is a prophet to spawn on a periodic mark, and then for you to fight over it with the horde who gets to kill her.
I think we call that Pazuzu.
Yeah, I mean, except everybody teams up to kill Pazuzu, so it's okay.
It's true.
Pazuzu is the biggest, the highest level of fate in Animos, the first Eureka, and you need 3 items from it to create the final Animos level weapon. If you get gold on the fate, you get 3 of the item from it, so you only have to do the fate once per weapon. Later ones you need more than will drop from a single instance of the fate. But you can also trade in the crystals that drop off the normal fates for those items as well now. So if for some reason people aren't spawning that final fate, you're not locked out of it.
My only experience was going in there and farming a camp of mobs until basically the evening was over, and I was so done.
So was this before they added the catch-up mechanics, or was that even with that?
It was with some of the catch-up mechanics.
Okay, because like I said, Animos, like after, I want to say in the 3rd week that I was doing Animos was the one where I hit level 20, which is the point at which it sinks you if you get above it. And I finished up my gear set and weapon that same week. But doing the Eureka challenge logs gives you a whole bunch of XP, and then it comes pretty quick from the fates as well. And then I've been in Pagos. This is my 2nd week in Pagos, and I'm at level 32 out of 35 there. So
I guess that's the other thing, though. My still need to finish leveling Bard, so my kill speed at max level is not great.
Yeah, I could probably be killing faster if I was if I had was something like Red Mage seems to be the favorite there because it can heal itself and it can raise people.
Res Mage.
Yeah. But I'm going in as Bard, and it goes okay.
I couldn't kill fast, but like I couldn't die as warrior.
As
Yeah,
Bard,
that's pretty much how Dark Knight goes.
Yeah, as Bard, I can kill fast enough to maintain at least up to a 20 chain, but I have to use potions. Or if I put 2 points into defense and 3 points into offense on the materia grid, like I can just chain same level mobs, just no problem. But I can only make it up to about 15 or so. I'm not too worried about the chains though. I'm mostly killing the individual mobs for the challenge logs and then just going to fates otherwise.
Yeah, like I basically have 2 Eureka experiences. Early when it launched, I went in there and tried to grind by myself, and it was boring. And then I went in there with Pix, pulling everything onto his character and like taunting it while we ground it down. And that was also boring. So maybe I should try soloing again.
Here, I thought you liked just killing things.
Yeah, I don't know. So here's drop loot. That's the problem. That's the problem I've always had with just killing random stuff in Final Fantasy XIV is like, because I'm not really a crafter, none of the things that they drop are actually interesting to me.
These things don't even drop crafting materials. They sometimes drop crystals.
That's so unsatisfying. Like, anytime that you kill a lot of things and it doesn't drop anything,
yes,
it's just super unsatisfying as a playstyle. It just makes me mad.
You can get lock boxes once in Pagos. I've yet to see one actually drop from a monster, though. I think they drop more often at the higher level ones.
I mean, like, Darkest Dungeon was entertaining because, one, like, the leveling system was kind of novel, and it felt fun to run through the dungeons, but there was also a chance of getting cosmetic chests, which were always interesting. I mean, sure, most of the time they were just going to be, like, sparklers that you didn't care about and would end up deleting, but, like, occasionally you got really cool outfits. So, to make another awkward transition... Mario hacks?
So, Mario Maker...
The dark time of about a month ago.
Yeah, well, starting... Man, Mario Maker basically went out without updates for like 2 years with a pretty active community. And so Mario Maker kind of got a little bit stale for a lot of the really serious members of the community. And so people started looking elsewhere. And there had already been an existing Super Mario World ROM hack community.
It's this piece of software called Lunar Magic. It has existed for as long as I've been aware of the internet, basically.
Since early 2000s.
I mean, because there's one for Zelda, too, that I've seen that allows you to build dungeons in it.
Yeah, it's basically a Super Mario World level editor.
And in fact, a lot of the Mario Maker community lingo comes from the early ROM hacks. If you ever hear somebody refer to a Kaizo hack, that's because of Kaizo Mario 1, 2, and 3, which is like the early super hard ROM hack that somebody made that to like challenge their friends. This spawned a number of actually good games.
But it also spawned a continued legacy of trolling.
There's a continued legacy of trolling, but there's also like it's generally agreed, even in the like Kaizo community, that none of the Kaizo Mario games are good by like current definitions. Like they have learned enough that they have moved past some of the like places where a game goes from trolly to frustrating.
You don't need to put a hidden block over every single jump.
Yes. And in fact, if you manage to tell everyone that your game doesn't have Kaizo blocks in it, hidden blocks anywhere in any jumps, and then you put one in at the very last jump in the game, and that's the only one in the game, it might be the best hidden block in the entire history of ROM hacks.
So that brings us to the current stock, of which is Invictus. Invictus came out in December?
No, like, I thought it was before that. Like, it's been a while. It's been out for almost a year.
Oh, really? Huh.
I mean, it's been out long enough for there to be a big competition between several speedrunners for the speedrun world record.
That's fair. Anyway, Invictus is a rather masterfully done hack. It is very, very difficult, so like I have no chance of playing it. I don't intend to start. But it requires you to have a very good knowledge of things like when to spin jump, when to normal jump, how those sorts of things interact with the various things you can land on, as well as you must have a very good reaction time. But also, Invictus is special in that, one, it contains a tutorial level to explain its special rules, for the most part. The creator said it didn't have any Kaizo blocks in it. It has exactly one on the last jump in the game. And then each level, for the most part, has a particular gimmick. In one, for example, Mario can double jump. In one, you can change between a normal jump and a spin jump mid-jump by pressing a button, which is not a thing you can normally do. The final boss is Kamek, in a very custom boss fight, which was not a thing Mario World hacks did for a long time. The levels could be very hard, and then they couldn't figure out a way to make the bosses hard, so they just like put the Wendy fight in, but add a million fireballs. This has a custom final boss and some sprites imported from Yoshi's Story, or not Yoshi's Story, Yoshi's Island, and it's really just a very impressive piece of work.
So they take these ROM hacks that they compile using Lunar Magic, and then they start to go and edit the assembly so that they can add all of these new features in. Like, there are some dedicated teams now to building these. And there's some impressive levels that do really cool things. There's also a level that screen wraps vertically. So if you fall down the bottom, you'll continue falling through the top.
There's custom music taken from the letter V 6 times.
Well, yeah, with custom music taken from the letter V 6 times. There are shells that you can bounce on twice. They are, like, the final level actually gives you the ability to both double jump and switch from regular to spin jump. It leads to just some beautiful hacks to watch, and they look like they're like all of the people who run them say like this is sort of Invictus was the hack that got a lot of people who didn't like the idea of editing the ASM. In the concept being there's vanilla Mario where you're just moving the pieces around to chocolate Mario where you're actually going and mucking with the code to make things different. Invictus was the one that made everyone sort of jump on board the chocolate train.
This metaphor went to a weird place.
It did go to a weird
Yes.
place. As someone who likes vanilla way more than chocolate, like I feel like I'm not a fan of this metaphor.
I mean, vanilla is unchanged is kind of the idea. Chocolate is when you're really changing up the rules of Mario, is how they refer to it, at least. But this brings us to Grand Poo World 2, which is, I think, a brilliant piece of work, both from just like really, really good game design. It's a fascinating game in that it starts off very vanilla and then slowly starts to introduce more and more new mechanics to the game as it goes on. Like, it feels like it has a progression. The game ends with a bad ending that tells you that there are secrets in the game, and you have to go and like solve an escape room to figure out how to actually get to the good end. It's just all around, like, it's an incredibly impressive piece of work.
I also feel like it doesn't invalidate Mario Maker. It's just very different.
It's very different. Like, this has become a divergent path. Although basically everyone who's in on this community is now super excited about Mario Maker 2.
I mean, the positives of that means it should have a really rich release of content when Mario Maker 2 comes out.
Well, it's going to be interesting because everyone's going to be learning the tools basically from scratch. Like, because there are quite a few levels that are entirely predicated on a growing collection of, we're going to call it buggy behavior to do interesting things.
Mario Maker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a period where creators are going to be trying to figure out what bugs were fixed, what new bugs they can find, how they can get all of these different new pieces to work together you're gonna need some time for the hackers to the community is large and it's really passionate, which is super awesome to watch. But like there are people who are just dedicated to finding weird tech. Like I saw a level which it was just pointing out that if a bomb is on a certain location on the screen, when it blows up one block over. Like specifically, it has to be on position 9 or position 129 in order for that to work. Which is like, that only happens after somebody really beats on the game. Like,
I was going to say, that is some tremendously niche information.
It's tremendously niche information that you get from somebody having beaten on a game for hours and hours. And then you take that mechanical information, you feed it into the creator community, and they try and figure out if they can't make a hilariously a cool or trolly level with it.
Man, I remember the same sort of stuff building Doom levels, because like the most simple one that everybody used that I remember was if you tried to create a open world area by assigning it a skybox texture, you would end up with this really weird environment where like you had a sky associated with a panel that didn't meet up nicely to another sky associated with a panel. But if you simply remove the textures from all the things you wanted the skybox to show on, it would just render the skybox instead of a texture. So I think all these communities end up basically figuring out bugs in the code to get it to work the way that they want it to.
I'm pretty sure I've done that thing that you've described intentionally.
I mean, that was how you had to do the thing.
But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with watching these new Kaizo hacks coming out, and I think they're worth a check. Like, it is fascinating to see people teaching themselves assembly. It's SNES assembly in order to build a new community of SNES developers for these ROM hacks.
It amazes me how much homebrew for older systems is still active and around. I mean, there's still people building games for the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I think part of this community is it's really easy for basically anyone to know how hard these games are, because most of us have played a Mario before. And so, like, once you've played a Mario, you have sort of a baseline of what's a hard Mario look like. And then you see people doing just incredibly precise, impressive stuff. It's great entertainment.
So do you spend much time playing these?
I wish. I actually should give it a try at some point. Just like maybe. I know there are a couple of really good intro Kaizo hacks that I might try. But I did give like a couple of really basic Kaizo Mario Maker levels a try. And like there's some fundamental activity that I just don't have the timing on, and I would need to like sort of sit down and learn it. Like, one of the big things that is just gonna happen all of the time in these games is shell jumps. The idea that at a certain point in your jump, if you release the shell against a wall and you're going at a certain velocity, your character will then be able to jump off of that shell that you just launched at that wall. And so that'll give you additional height in order to make these really cool jumps. But like, I don't know, like I don't have the timing to do a shell jump. And the joke is like most of these guys need to be able to do shell jumps in their sleep. And there's other like tricky tech like getting spring drops to work. Just there's a whole slew of different item abuse inputs that I don't have, and I don't really have the time to pick up. And they're kind of the like minimum bar in order to do these things.
I remember clearing the special levels in Super Mario World and then never wanting to do anything like that ever again.
I mostly thought the special levels were pretty fun.
With the exception of Tubular, I think I agree with you.
I was gonna say, which was the one that has me floating?
That one.
Yeah, okay.
I liked the special levels in Mario, but it always felt like I was doing them wrong. Like, you win them, but they always felt wrong to me.
They didn't feel like a Mario game to me.
That is, like, in the sense that there is sort of a right answer and you just have to execute it.
They're just structurally... I'm trying to think of how to put it. Like, the thing that feels weird to me about them is the thing that I think a lot of people like about them. And I also do kind of like them for that. But it was like...
There's the divide here between the Star Road levels and the special level. Star Road levels are all puzzles.
Yeah, the Star Road levels are all puzzles. And I liked the Star Road levels a lot. The special levels are like... I don't know how to...
So wait,
what's
what's
the vocabulary
different?
to describe it?
Oh, is the special levels the ones once you get to Star Road?
Once you finish Star Road, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, once you find all the secret exits from Star Road.
I do think it is interesting having the idea of, like, a lot of the levels that people design to be difficult really have an answer. And that's not how traditionally Mario levels work. Like, Mario levels are branching with a whole bunch of different paths, or there's like you could fly, you could attack the enemies, you don't have to go in any specific, there's multiple routes through a level, whereas a lot of the super hard Kaizo levels are designed so there's really one route, you have to execute it very, very well. There was a project in Mario Maker 1 called Super Warp World, where they were intentionally trying to design hard levels that could be routed. Like, that did not have a single route through it. Because one of the things that makes speedrunning fun to people is trying to figure out optimal routes. And that's just something that's not really a thing you do in Mario Maker.
Yeah. It's frustrating because I don't have the vocabulary to describe what I'm thinking here.
So, at this point, I don't think we are going to get to the other topic that keeps rolling over. Is there anything else that we want to discuss tonight? Any topiclets, as it were?
Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon comes out next week. If Tangle Leap did not have enough story for you, maybe pick up this one.
I assume this is Switch only?
Switch only.
What platform was this originally on?
The Wii. Apparently it got a sequel in Japan, but this is the first one again.
Weren't there some of these games on the original PlayStation?
Yes, the original Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon was on the PlayStation, and so was Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon 2. This one was released in the US as Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Dungeon, which was sort of a continuation of Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Tale or something like that, which was a mini-game and card battling game for the DS. It's not actually related to that game in any way other than it has Chocobo and a bunch of the same characters in it.
Actually, it looks like it's coming out on the PS4 too.
Oh yeah, I said Switch only, but I was wrong. This is coming out for everything. Like, literally everything.
Everything.
I mean, Square likes money, so...
Square does like money.
Except for the money of Final Fantasy VIII players.
Their money's no good.
Apparently
Really.
not. I really do wonder if they just lost the source.
Seems kind of likely, honestly.
I mean, because otherwise, I think we would have seen it by now. And I guess they've already got the compiled and packaged version that's on the PC, so they just keep pushing that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week.
Oh,
good night.
And if we ever do get a Grand Prix World 2 at a GDQ, make sure we save the animals.
You know that's never going to happen.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
See
night.
ya.